All of the shiurim this morning are dedicated by Gail and Marty Elsat in memory of their aliyat neshama for Reb Nachman ben Yitzchak Halevi, Sigmund and Epstein Zichrono Livracha, on the occasion of his 55th yortzeit, 21 Tevet. This year particularly is sponsored by Estelle Harris for Rabbi Goldin's good health. Continued good health. She loves listening to the shir. Thank you. All right. Okay, we're going to deal with another mystery today, one that I think is really very, very interesting. We're going to focus on an ancillary figure in the Torah who may be teaching us some very important lessons. And that is, we're going to take a look at Yisro, the father-in-law of Moshe, who also is called by other names we know as well, Reuel, etc., etc. And we're going to take a look at how the Torah maps out his involvement with Bnei Israel and with Moshe, and we'll see some very interesting things. Let's first begin by saying that Yisro first appears when Moshe escapes to Midian. That's when he first appears. When Moshe arrives in Midian, he saves the daughters of Yisro from being pursued or being persecuted. And Yisro says, when his daughters come back, this man saved us. He says, well, bring him into the house. Why did you leave him standing there? And he comes in and eventually marries Tzipporah, has the experience of the burning bush, and we've already spoken about Moshe's return and the difficulties that ensue with Moshe's return to Egypt. But now we're going to take a look at the scene of Matan Torah. At the scene of Matan Torah, we're at Har Sinai. We're about to begin Revelation very shortly. And the Torah tells us, Vayishma Yisro Kohen Midyan Chosein Moshe, Kol Asher Elokim Osa L'Moshe, Osa Elokim L'Moshe L'Yisrael Amo, Ki Hotzi Hashem Es Yisrael MiMitzrayim. Yisro hears. Yisro hears the news of all the miraculous events that have occurred to the Israelites and all that God has done for them by taking the course of taking them out of Egypt. And what does Yisro do? He saddles a donkey, he brings the mishpacha, he brings Tzipporah and her two sons, Moshe's two sons, and he comes El Har Elokim. He comes to Sinai. Why he's coming? Not quite sure, but we'll see. Now, what happens then is Yisro actually gives some very specific advice to Moshe. He tells Moshe, you can't do this as you're doing it. It's too much of a burden. You have to appoint people. You have to divide up the people into 10s, 20s, 30s, etc., and appoint people over them. And the Torah tells us, Vayishma Moshe. Moshe listens to him. And then, the bottom of the page, Vayishalach Moshe es chosno, vayelech lo el arzo. Moshe, and he doesn't say, this is important, he doesn't say Vayishlach Moshe es Yisro. That would be he kicked him out. That would be poor paradigm for treating in-laws. But the fact is that Vayishalach means he let him out. In other words, he said, we thank you very much, and if you want to go, you can go. And Yisro leaves. Supposedly. The Torah tells us he leaves. Now, Revelation occurs. We're going to deal with that some other time. After Revelation, Bnei Israel begin their journey from Har Sinai, supposedly, hopefully, to go straight into the land of Israel. Now, this is a very momentous moment. I've often said that the most important moment of revelation, of Matan Torah, is the moment we leave. Because the moment we leave determines the value of everything that came before. If we leave carrying the Torah with us in our hearts and our minds, then everything that has occurred will be worthwhile. If we leave, the rabbis say, Kitino kaboreach mibeit hasefer, which is the way we left, like a child running away from school, finish that, then we're going to run into trouble, which we do. But at this point, the trouble has not begun, and this is a majestic moment. This is a majestic moment because we're departing Har Sinai, We are now fully a nation. These are our first footfalls as a nation, first steps as a nation. And the Torah chronicles. The Torah says to us, Vayisu b'nei Yisrael, I'm looking at page 2, Vayisu b'nei Yisrael, l'masehem midbar Sinai, v'yishkona Anon b'midbar Paran, and they're following the Anon, and the Anon goes to the wilderness of Paran, and that's where they go, etc., etc., etc. And then the Torah continues on Pasuk Chavchet, Eile Maseh b'nei Yisrael etzivosam. I skipped a couple of psukim there, but what the psukim that I skipped are outlining the way in which Bnei Yisrael left Har Sinai. In other words, the degalim, the flags, and everything about this moment is majestic. When all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the Torah says, Vayomer Moshe lechovav ben Ruel hamidjani chasan Moshe. Moshe speaks to Chovav ben Ruel, the Midianite, Kosein Moshe, his father-in-law. No simanachnu el makom asher amar Hashem oso etein lochem l'cho itanu v'hitavnu lach ki Hashem diber tov al Yisrael. All of a sudden, Moshe is conversing again with Israel. And what does he say to him? He says, please come with us. Come with us because God is going to do for good for us and give us great good, and you will be able to benefit from that good. Where does Yisro come from? The Torah does not mention at any point that Yisro has returned to Har Sinai, right? In other words, the last thing we knew was Vayelech el Artzo. He went back to Midian. So what's he doing at Har Sinai at this point? Doesn't make sense. It's really not clear. All right? What? This is Perek Yud, right?
But the previous one is Yud Chet.
Correct. Okay, this is Bamidbar.
Wait a minute. Is Chaf Zion, Vayishlach Moshe and
that is in Shemot. That is in Parshas Yisro. And and here I'm referring to what happens in Parshas Bamidbar when we leave, in Perek Bamidbar when we leave. All right, in other words, we are traveling away from Har Sinai. We've entered another two books of we've skipped. According to Shemot, he left. It's very clear. So what's he doing at Har Sinai? Why doesn't the Torah tell us that he returned or when he returned? And Moshe is now having a conversation with him. And let's listen to the conversation. Moshe says to him, please come with us, because God will deal good, will give us good. Vayomer elav lo elech. So Yisro says to him, I will not go. Now, I'm not going to travel with you. Ki im el artzi vel moladati elech. I'm going to go back to my home, to my land, and to my birthplace. Vayomer al no tazovo sanu. Moshe persists. Moshe persists and says, please don't leave us. No means please. He's begging him, please stay with us. Ki al ken yodato chanusenu b'amidbar v'yisalanu le'inaim. You were well versed in the pathways of the wilderness. It's okay, you can stand. The pathways of the wilderness, and you will be eyes for us. You'll be a great guide. V'ayat ki telech imanu v'haya hatov hahu asher yetiv Hashem imanu dev tavnu lach. And as you travel with us, the good that God gives to us, we will share with you. Next pasuk. Vayisu Har Hashem. End of the conversation. What don't we know? Does he stay? Does he go? What did he answer Moshe Rabbeinu? I mean, again, we're being told that a conversation takes place, and we're left hanging. We're left hanging because we don't know whether Yisro agrees to come back or not. Yes, or to stay or not.
Was his name at this moment Hovav?
His name changes periodically in the Torah, and the rabbis will discuss.
Just like Yaakov.
Yeah, we'll discuss why, right? In other words, we don't, unlike Yaakov and Israel, where we are told of the name change, it just changes. It's different, okay? Now, there are a variety, yes?
Why does Moshe want to come?
I'm sorry, say again?
Why does Moshe want
Why does he want him to come? Very good question. I think he respects him. He has given him very good advice concerning the leadership of the people, and he knows the will, and as he says, he knows the wilderness. He can help them.
But he said, you have been the eyes.
No, not been the eyes. You are the. In other words, what he says is as follows.
Translate.
All right. Well, I didn't translate. I just copied a translation. So let's see. All right. That's okay. It says literally. Where is it? Ki al kein yodat tochanosenu. You have known, or you know, the paths in the wilderness, and you'll be our guide. You'll be for us eyes, he says.
Okay. Not that Yisroel's a witness.
No. That's all right. Now, by the way, this all is very important because does Yisro experience Matan Torah or does he not experience Matan Torah? According to the specific text, it seems that he leaves and comes back afterwards. All right, so we're going to see the following. There are a variety of different opinions. They are based, if you look at page number 3, they are based upon two debates. The first between Rabbi Chia and Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, and the second between Rabbi Yoshua and Rabbi Eliezer Amudai. All right. The first debate is as follows. When did Yisro arrive? Right? The first arrival. According to one, and it doesn't tell us who says what in this case, which is sometimes happens, Chad Omar, Yisro achar matan Torah hoya. That Yisro never came before revelation. The fact that that portion is placed there is for another reason. He only comes afterwards. It's one visit. And the conversation that occurs ends with Vayishalach Moshe. That pasuk that was in Shemot really belongs in Bamidbar. Why is the Torah telling us, and it's very interesting, why is the Torah telling us about Yisro at that particular moment if that's not when he comes? That's when he gives all the advice. No, he wasn't there. He was only after, says the Ramban. Why was the text placed there? For one reason. We just left Amalek, which is a narrative concerning our devoted enemy. The Torah wants to balance that text with a discussion of Yisro, who is a chassid u'mos ha'olam. Right? Now, the Torah wants to balance Amalek with Yisro. Now, this is very important. I've said this before. Unfortunately, too many Jews don't know this. We respect non-Jews, as long as they respect us. Right? And as long as they... In other words, we believe that there is a value to every human being. And we believe that as long as they obey Sheva Mitzvot B'nei Noach, which we consider to be the basic moral laws, then we respect them and we uphold them. And there are Chasidei Umos Ha'olam. I said last week, I believe, that I would love to have them sit next to in Gan Eden, Bezras Hashem Ad Mea V'Esrim, next to someone who is not Jewish who saved Jews during World War II. Right? Their place in Gan Eden, in my mind, I would like to see it and I'd like to share it. So this is very important because unfortunately, many Jews fall into a trap of feeling that because God is with us and we have a special relationship, that means we are automatically superior to everybody else. Automatically superior, and you can steal for non-Jews, you can do this from non-Jews, you can treat non-Jews differently. Now, yes, there are different laws vis-a-vis non-Jews and Jews, but Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky, I told you this, would greet the mailman every day. When I told this story to someone this week, he said, and my family was close to Rav Yaakov Kamenetsky, so I'm sharing this with you. Someone said that, he said that it's a story, whether it's true or not, that a nun was present at his funeral. And when someone said to the nun, "Why are you here at the funeral?" She said, because when I walk through the street, so many people curse me, spit when they see me. This man always had a smile and said hello. And that's why I'm here at the Levaya. Right now, that's what the kind of face that we should put to the outside world. All right. So therefore, the Torah is balancing, says the Eben Ezra. The Torah is balancing Amalek with Yisro. It places
to advisors to TORAH.
Amalek. That's a medrash.
What's the Medrash say?
The medrash says that Yisro and Korach eventually begin as advisors to Paro, but it's not certainly
Or Amalek?
Amalek as well. Certainly.
Oh, so here they're
Certain,
against each other.
right, certainly the Medrash says that, but the text does not. So I'm trying to stick close to the text and see what the rabbis do in terms of dealing with that text. All right, so they have Eben Ezra. One visit, one conversation, when? After Matan Torah. And this debate about whether he comes before or after actually mirrors another debate. And that is, Vayishma Yisro, what did he hear? What was it that he came, that caused him to come? And the answers that are given, if you take a look, it's a debate between Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Elazar Modai. The Rabbi Yeshua says, Milchemes Amalek Shama. It's just like the Torah says. What comes right before his arrival? Amalek. What does Eliezer Hamodai say? No, Matan Torah Shama. Now, if he hears about Matan Torah, what does that mean? That he's not there before Matan Torah. It's only after Matan Torah that he arrives, or perhaps comes and goes. But the debate, therefore, is what did he hear? What caused him to come? Was it the victory of Bnei Yisrael over Amalek, miraculous victory? Or was it that he heard about the tremendous event that took place at Har Sinai? Next. So that's the Eben Ezra, though. The Eben Ezra says one visit, one conversation happens after Matan Torah. The Ramban. The Ramban does not like Ein Mukdam U'Muchar BaTorah, that non-chronological. He always tries to stick to the text as it unfolds. So what does Ramban say? He says the following. I'm actually going to the fifth line. Kain nirali, vayishlach Moshe es chosno vayelech el arzo, shehaya zeh b'rishona v'rishona, v'holach lo el arzo. According to the Ramban, the Yisro leaves when Moshe says, you're welcome to go, comes back after Matan Torah, and the conversations unfold as they unfold in the text. In other words, there's a conversation before Matan Torah where Moshe Rabbeinu learns from Yisro's advice and then says, okay, you can go home now. And there's a second conversation when Yisro is after Matan Torah. Now, the problem with the Ramban, of course, is the absence of any indication in the text that Yisro is taking these trips, right? In other words, he just suddenly appears. Why does the Torah say that? Yes?
I understand how anybody could say that he came after Matan Torah, because it says specifically in the Bishat that he brought Zipporah and the two children, and they had to be in Matan Torah. So how do you explain that?
All right, the answer to that is that it could be, according to those who say it comes after Matan Torah, that Zipporah and his children did not.
That doesn't make sense.
All right. Well, you're taking a side in the debate. That's fine. All right. But
Specifically, you started taking it down to Mitzrayim.
right. Moshe, that we
I know that everybody who was at Matan Torah and their descendants heard Matan
Correct.
Torah. For him to say he didn't want his wife, or even
well, he may have wanted it, but see, the other mystery, and I didn't bring this into the text, is Yisro comes and brings the family, and it says in the Torah, you have it, achar shilucheho. after she was sent away. When was she sent away? That also is there's no indication. We said a possibility was that she left after Moshe's life was threatened and she saved him through the bris milah. But one way or the other, she is not there for the Yitzias Mitzrayim and Yam Suf, it would seem, right? Okay, so you're taking one side in the debate, and you're bringing good evidence, but others say otherwise. Okay, the Bravanel. According to the Bravanel, also, I want to stay by the pshat.
Are you on page?
On page 3, 4, page 4, the second paragraph. Page 4, the second paragraph. Bravanel says he comes, very simple, he comes before Matan Torah, which is the first year of Bnei Israel's sojourn or stay at Har Sinai. He stays it says 2 years, that's wrong. He stays for a year and a half because they're not there for 2 full years. He stays through the entire pageant, through the entire event, which means, according to the Rabanel, that when Moshe said you can go home, he said what? No, I'm going to stay. And he stays. And that's why he's there after Matan Torah, because he never left. That's another possibility. Okay? The Sforno. All right. So those are among the different possibilities as to the chronology and the timing of his visit to Har Sinai. Is it before? Is it after? Is it both? Is it a variety of different opinions? Next question. Does he stay? All right. Does he stay after Moshe begs him to stay? Torah doesn't tell us. So once again, as you would expect, there are a variety of different opinions. I've just brought a sampling of them. He says, I'm going to go back. And he gives an interesting reason. He says, Shelo tisbol zakenosi avir eretz acheres umuzona. Because I'm an old man, and going to a new place, I won't be able to manage. I won't be able to survive, to thrive in a new climate, in a new place. You hear this sound familiar? All right? Okay? A lot we're going to see sounds familiar, all right? This is basically, the Sforno is saying, we know people, it's been difficult sometimes for us, and others don't come because of the difficulties, correct? So this is one thing that's possible. Yisro is going back, and according to the Sforno, he's going back because he's old and he can't change his ways. Now what happens? Yisro ubanav, look at the bottom. Ki amnam Yisro chazar el arzo ka'amro, vayishalach Moshe's chosono. Again, he doesn't address the fact that statement is before Matan Torah, but one way or the other, he basically says, I'm going to go back. I'm not going to stay. And what happens is he goes back, but according to the Sforno, his children remain. All right? And that's why later in Jewish history, you'll find the children of Yisro involved with Bnei Yisro. Yes?
Is there something that says why they didn't go?
Why they didn't?
Why they didn't go with him?
The children go back with him? There's no discussion. The assumption is he's bringing the family for a reunion with Moshe, and they're going to stay with their father. In other words, they're going to stay there. This Sifri says that he doesn't go, all right? And look at what the Sifri, look at the arguments that he raises. Avolani yeshli eretz, v'yeshli nechasim, v'yeshli mishpacha, v'dayan ha'yisiberi. All right, I'm going back. Why? Because I've got land, I've got a house, I've got a family, I'm a very important person in my community, right? What am I going to be when I'm going to go with you? It doesn't make sense, right? Now, the Sifri is a medrash, but the medrash is again trying to explain the pshat and saying that he's offering very valid reasons as to why he won't come, as many do today about Aliyah, right? Don't want to leave. I'll tell you, on a very personal level, Aliyah has not always been easy for me because when I was in Englewood, I was the rabbi. I had a position, and there were 800 families that were dependent upon my advice at times, et cetera, et cetera. Don't have that anymore. And the transition is not always easy, and that's what he's saying. He's saying the transition is not easy. The transition is not easy, and I don't want to make that transition. I want to go back. I want to be a big person in my community. I'm a dayan. I'm a judge. I'm not staying. So that's the medrash. Another medrash, Mechilta Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. He says the following, and it's similar in a way to what the first medrash says, the first statement, which is, Amar lohem, klum haner mahana ela b'moka machoshech, ma yaser ner bein chamo l'levana. All right, I'm looking at the second underlined section, second paragraph, second underlined section. What does he say? He says, a candle only benefits people in the darkness. A candle will not benefit people or even be noticed when the light comes from the sun and the moon. Now, what is he saying? He's saying, Moshe, you're the sun. Yehoshua is the moon. I won't be able to make a huge contribution, which I could make going back to my community. And therefore, I'm going to go back. And in the last underlined section of the Ramban, he offers a series of potential reasons as to why he won't go back. And again, they're somewhat familiar. But in this case, he basically says that I'm necessary back there. I'm necessary back there. And not only that, he says, people have given things to me that they expect me to return, picadons, certain loans of certain items, and I have to go back. I got to finish my business. I gotta do that. All right. Also, another possibility is that this was a famine year, and the people were basically going to depend on him and depend on certain things that they gave to him, which he was supposed to give back, and it's going to be a chilul Hashem if he doesn't go back and take care of his business. So he's got to go back. All right, and finally, if you take a look at the Ramban we already said, okay? The Ramban already said that Yisro came and went, and the second occasion, according to the Ramban, and I didn't tell you this when we talked about the Ramban says he stayed, period. That he stayed and was convinced by Moshe to remain. Okay, so these are among the opinions that are offered to our questions. But what's the biggest question? And don't look at the last page, please. What's the biggest question? It's too late. The biggest question is what? Okay, that's a very important question, but and that also is debated. Does Yisro become a ger? Does he convert? Does he become part of the Jewish people? Left for us to determine. But what's the biggest question? The biggest question is, why does the Torah leave all this mysterious? Why isn't it giving us the information we need to be able to say, okay, we know when he came, we know when he left or didn't leave, we know he stayed. Why is the Torah giving us this story in partial terms and leaving us to try to struggle, and all of those Chachamim trying to struggle with the questions of the text? So when the Torah omits things, when the Torah doesn't tell us things, very often we learn as much from the omissions as we learn from the inclusions. So here, what is the Torah leaving out? So the answer, I think, now you can turn to that page if you haven't. All right, this is page number 6. Page number 6. Right? If you take a look at the second bullet on the top, we'll begin with the distinction between seeing and hearing. It says, Vayishma Yisro, right? And Bnei Israel, over and over again, what is the verb that is used to describe their experience? Vayar. They saw. Now, in biblical text, according to Chazal, seeing and hearing are very different experiences. Seeing means you're there, you witness it, it's powerful, and you just see it as it unfolds. Hearing is different. Hearing is quieter. Hearing is more distant. But hearing also has the benefit that you have the ability to comprehend, to study. It's not that powerful lightning, thunder, etc. Hearing means I hear and I'm going to contemplate. Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu. What do we say? Hear, O Israel, right? Because we don't see God directly. We hear. We're supposed to pick up the hints of Kadosh Baruch Hu's involvement with the world and presence in the world, but we don't have the benefit of seeing. All right? So the Israelites saw what happened at Sinai. Yisro hears. Or Yisro experiences Sinai, but he hears about Amalek and all the other things that happen. Now, up to that point. Now, let's go to a medrash, to the Gemara, which is a very, very powerful medrash. I've studied this with you in other years. Maybe, I don't think this year. The medrash changes the whole experience at Har Sinai in a very, very powerful way. The medrash says the following: Kafa aleim har kegigis, and again, this is in the Gemara, it's in the Talmud. God uprooted the mountain, held it over the heads of the Israelites, and said, all right, it's your choice. Accept the Torah and you'll live, or I'm going to drop the mountain on your heads. All right? Now, why would the rabbis say that? That's totally antithetical, it would seem, to everything we're told happens at Sinai. Naaseh v'nishma, we're accepting of our own free will. Why does it? What are the rabbis trying to say?
That reflects the Jewish people for eternity.
What? That God holds the mountain over our head?
That if we say Berlin is Jerusalem,
Then
Hashem's going to lower the mountain.
Okay, interesting.
That's
a possibility. All right,
in America, 70% intermarriage.
Right.
and-
Okay. All right. So what you're suggesting is that the scene of God holding over the mountain over our heads is sort of a sign for the generations to come, that if we obey God, then we're going to survive as a nation, and if we don't, we won't. All right. Good point. That's a good possibility. Yes.
I was going to say something similar, that Hashem is saying, not that he's going to destroy us, but you see this mountain? If you accept the Torah, it will protect you like a chuppah. We're married.
Interesting.
And
Okay.
if not, and if you don't, then your world will be destroyed. It's not saying I'm going to destroy you. It's saying
All right. Interesting. Same idea, just a little bit further. That you said the mountain over the head is a symbol of protection, and dropping the mountain is when we leave, and we're not going to have God's protection, and we're going to assimilate into an outside world. Yes.
I think that Gemara is addressing the issue of how could a people have free will and say Nasa Nishma when they have witnessed so many miracles.
Okay.
And
This is a very different approach, and this is the approach that I would posit as well. Do the Israelites really have free will at Har Sinai? No. Picture it. You're standing at the bottom of Har Sinai, and there's thunder, and there's lightning, and there's God speaking, and there's the sound of the shofar, and God says, are you going to accept the Torah? What are you going to say? No? Right? You're going to say no? You're not going to say no. There is coercion of circumstance at Har Sinai. What? Sorry? I'll get you. All right? So, and the truth, I think, of why that this is really what the rabbis are saying, is they continued to say, there comes a point in our history where we accept the Torah of our own free will. where that which we accepted, hold on a second, that which we accepted under stress and under force of circumstance, we will accept of our own free will. When is that time? Purim. Purim. Why? Now, why Purim? Because Purim is a turning point in Jewish history. Purim is the beginning of the non-prophetic era in the national history of the Jewish people. God is now going to be silent. He's not going to tell us what to do. And we have to determine from the events around us what we should do and what it means, etc. That's why Purim is the antidote or the response to the duress of Sinai. And therefore, Chazal say, at the time of Har Sinai, God held the mountain over their head, forced them through circumstance to accept the Torah. There comes a point in Jewish history where Mordechai and Esther go through a narrative that could conceivably be explained as a series of fortuitous coincidences. And what do they say? No, it's God's hand in history. And the people accept it, kimu v'kiblu, right? Which mirrors also the language, kimu v'kiblu. They obey, they did what they were supposed to do, and they accepted is Nasef and Ishma. It's a different Nasef and Ishma, at a different point of history. And the rabbis are being very, very honest here. They're basically saying, you can't say that the Israelites really had free will. And that's one way to interpret this medrash, and personally, that's the approach that I like, because I believe it's very honest, and I believe it really mirrors the facts, and it explains why they say Purim is the antidote. All right, now, because of that, I'd like to suggest why the Torah leaves Yisro's experience hanging. Yisro is potentially the only individual in the story, other than Moshe's family, who might not have seen all the things that everybody else saw, right? It's possible, again, it's possible he didn't see Matan Torah, it's possible he did, but he is potentially the one person at Matan Torah who is what? Most like us. And the Torah says, because he's like you, and because he may not have experienced the coercion that everyone else is experiencing, we don't know what he decides. It's left hanging. Because the truth is that all of us, really, there's no given, right? We all have to work to accept, we have to work to believe, we have to work to obey the mitzvot. And there's no guarantee. And there's no guarantee for our children, unfortunately. You know, it would be great if we could guarantee that every child who grows up in an Orthodox home will remain Orthodox and observant. But the fact is, there's no guarantee, right? And therefore, the Torah wants to project that one individual. And the Torah wants to leave the details out because the details are uncertain. The details are uncertain. And therefore, the Torah tells us about Yisro, but doesn't tell us when he comes, doesn't tell us if he stays, doesn't tell us if he converts, because the Torah wants to leave all that blank. Now fill in the blanks. Fill in the blanks. Yes?
So when you talk about even Moshe, when Hashem said to him, the Israel are building the Egel, he had to go down to see it for himself.
Right, correct. A very good point. Yeah. Right.
Even the Gadol had to see, whereas it says on Yisro, he was on a very high level of Vayishma. If you say he had to see, well, he didn't see the Yamsuf, he
Right.
didn't see the Makos, he heard about them, and look at the level of Emunah that he was able to reach just by Shmiyah.
That is what we're saying. That is what we're saying. We're saying that potentially, if Yisro chooses to stay and is miskayer and converts, then look at someone like us who didn't experience all of those pressures and has to choose. And he's a symbol of people in our communities across the ages who are in the place where they have to make choices. Now, having said that, let's assume for a moment that Yisro converts. If he converts, there's another message here. And that is how we're supposed to deal with conversion and what we're supposed to feel about converts. And I'm going to start by throwing out the question. How do we feel about conversion in Jewish thought? Is it something that we welcome or something that we don't? We discourage. Why do we discourage? Thank you. Because it's not necessary. In other words, we have to understand that the initial discouragement of conversion is not because we don't want converts. It's because we want them to understand that they don't have to do this. They can be righteous, they can be Hasidei Yusuf. We're the only religion that basically says you don't have to be like us to earn heaven. You don't have to think like us in order to be saved. We're a religion that basically says we have our traditions, you have yours. As long as you obey Sheva Mitzvot B'nai Noach, as long as your traditions are not idolatrous, as long as etc., then you don't have to do this. Okay, so that's why we don't encourage conversion, because we're basically saying you don't have to do this. Now, next, how do we discourage a convert? What's the initial discouragement that we say? Do we say, yeah, go ahead.
We point out the difficulties in Jewish history, the tragedies of being Jewish, and say you really want to join a people that has been through
Okay,
all this?
very good. Very good. The first thing we say to the convert is not, you can't eat at McDonald's anymore, or you can't, whatever it might be. The first thing we say to the convert is, are you aware that the Jewish people are a persecuted people across the ages? That we are dechuyim, sruf, and the Gemara is very specific. We've been pushed, we've been shoved. Tell them the whole thing. And only if they say, Afal Pikein, in spite of that, this will be an honor for me to become a part of the Jewish people, only then, after they accept that, do you begin to teach them the mitzvot, which basically indicates a very important thing, and that is, Judaism is not just a religion, right? Judaism is a nation, and to become Jewish, you must first be willing to be part of the nation before you can begin to accept its laws.
But isn't Judaism a way of life?
Judaism is a way of life.
Instruction
Sure,
manual for life?
a way of life, absolutely, but it's also a national identity.
Of course.
All right? And you have to be, and I'm going to tell you a story about this in a little while, that brings this brought it home to me very, very clearly, and will bring it home to all of us.
Time of Shlomo HaMelech, they didn't allow converts.
What? I'm sorry.
They said that it was such a wonderful way of life in the time of Shlomo with the Beis Hamikdash, and they didn't want the goyim to say, this is the type of
Oh,
life.
interesting. Okay, they wouldn't want them to be attracted by the wealth of Shlomo's.
But no conversions
Okay,
allowed.
all right. So understand that the first step the convert has to take is the convert has to say, I want to be part of your people. I want to be part of your nation. Not mitzvot yet. That comes after that commitment. And in a sense, in a way, that mirrors the journey that we take at the beginning of our national history. Before you arrive at Sinai, you have to be willing to throw your lot in with that people going out into the wilderness. You have to be willing to say, I'm going to follow this man that I don't really know because he's promising things that are worthwhile and I want to accept them. It's only after we leave Egypt and go into that desert to the unknown that we can then receive the Torah and begin to be a nation. So the conversion mirrors our steps. And I'll go even further. The rabbis say that the rituals that are present at conversion, do you know where they come from? They come from what we did at Har Sinai. According to Chazal, the rituals that comprise a conversion's transition are the very same rituals and things that we did at Har Sinai. What are they? Bris Milah for a man, circumcision for a man, right? Immersion. The Torah says, "V'chibsu simloasam," they washed their garments. And the rabbis say, whenever the Torah tells you they washed their garments, it means they also immersed. And Kabbalas Torah, and acceptance of the Torah at Har Sinai. Which means that you and I are descendants of converts. We're all the same. That to become Jewish, we had to convert.
You mean with Avraham?
No, I'm saying at Har Sinai, there was a national conversion. In other words, every individual at Har Sinai who is accepting the Torah, in a sense, is converting from their previous life to Judaism.
So the women immersed and the men...
The men immersed as well. The men immersed as well, all right? At least according to the tradition. It doesn't say it in the text outright, but that's our understanding. And what the rabbis are saying is that, therefore, converts should be welcome once they convert. And this is a serious issue, because I was very involved with issues of conversion in the States, and very often converts who were Gerei Tzedek, were perfect, not perfect, but wonderful converts, would say that we have trouble breaking into the Jewish community. We have trouble, if they're a young woman, I have trouble finding someone who's willing to marry me. And I'll tell you a story. I'll tell you two stories, actually. I'll tell you, they are both experiences that I had in the conversion process. I'll probably tell you three. All right, let's start with one. The first story is I was working with a Jew, and a wonderful girl who had been sexually assaulted on the college campus. And when that happened, she dropped all her religion. And she said, eventually, I want to be religious. I'm going to study various religions, and I'll pick one. And she picked Judaism. All right, so can't have someone better than that if that's how she starts, right? I worked with her, and I worked with her. And over the course of the time that I worked with her, she met a Jewish fellow who came from a non-observant family. When the parents of this fellow heard that he was possibly going to marry a convert, they were up in arms. They were up in arms. And to make the story, the circle complete, that family was from Englewood, New Jersey, before I became the rabbi in Englewood. So in other words, I had no idea that I was ever going to be connected to Englewood. And I called up this family. And I called up the rabbi who was there at the time, who ended up being the rabbi emeritus during my time, and whatever. So it brought the whole circle around. Eventually, they accepted it. And they married. We were present at the wedding. It was a very strange wedding for us, because it was like in a country club, and everyone looked like the Kennedys. But somehow, and they raised leaders in the Jewish community. Wow. They raised leaders in the Jewish community. So, and that family had to accept, and they did. Okay, that's the first story. Second story doesn't end as well. The second story is I was working with another young lady for conversion, and something didn't feel right. And I couldn't put my finger on it. I could not understand what it was that was bothering me. Hold on one second. She was learning all the things I wanted her to learn. She was accepting the mitzvot, until one night I get a phone call. And she says to me the following: I just saw a show on television about the Shoah, about the Holocaust. I could never be a part of a nation the world could do that to. Yeah? I don't remember many conversations verbatim, but I remember that statement word for word. I could never be a part of a nation. Chazal were brilliant. Chazal said, what's the first step to conversion? You have to be part of a nation the world can do that to. She didn't say, I can't be part of a world that could do it to the nation, right? She basically said, I don't want to be the victim. And Chazal were brilliant. And this showed me their brilliance, because here was a young lady who ostensibly was going to convert, but didn't want to be part of the Jewish people. There's a lot more to talk about conversion, especially in the States. It's gone through some major changes, and maybe someday we'll discuss it as well. But the message that I want to bring home is that righteous converts are welcome in our community and should be welcomed to our community. And every day you state that. You know why you state it? There's a bracha in the Shmona Esrei that says, Ala tzadikim v'al hasidim, all right? Because of v'al geirei hatzedek v'yoleinu, right? We want to be like the hasidim, the tzadikim, like the geirei tzedek, those who convert for the right reasons and are righteous. They're people we look up to, and in a sense we should. Okay, that's it for now.